Today, we're looking closely at the alarming arrest of Dr. Badar Khan Suri. Suri is a postdoctoral fellow at Georgetown University, known for his work at the Al-Walid bin Talal Center for Muslim Christian Understanding. He specializes in peace and conflict studies, focusing on some of the most volatile regions in the world, like the Middle East and South Asia. And more significantly, he's recognized as an advocate for exploring the potential pathways to peace in deeply divided societies. Before unpackaging this topic, take a look at this clip depicting how the Trump administration has been targeting Georgetown University, a private Christian school.
Hey, but I've rarely read a more unconstitutional letter. On Monday, Ed Martin, the interim U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, sent the dean of Georgetown University Law Center, a Catholic law school, a letter that said it has come to my attention reliably that Georgetown Law School continues to teach and promote DEI. This is unacceptable. Martin said that he'd begun an inquiry into the school and demanded to know whether it had eliminated all DEI, which he does not define, but in right-wing circles tends to refer to any action at all designed to increase diversity or honor historically marginalized people from the school and its curriculum. He also asked if DEI is found in your courses or teaching in any way. Will you move swiftly to remove it? Even a first-year law student knows that the federal government cannot dictate the viewpoint and curriculum of a private Christian school. Yet here was a federal prosecutor opening an inquiry into a Jesuit school's protected speech. Hello?
Oh, my God. And these are the same people that have constantly said, how can you interfere on a Catholic institution's ability to do what they're guided by, their moral conscience to do? And we're getting a letter to a Jesuit institution, a Christian institution, saying, you must do this, you must do that. It's unbelievable.
They may know a thing or two about the law.
This is how the dean responded. Dean Traynor, your letter informs me that your office will deny our students and graduates government employment opportunities until you, as interim United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, approve of our curriculum. Given the First Amendment's protection of a university's freedom to determine its own curriculum and how to deliver it, the constitutional violation behind this threat is clear, as is the attack on the university's mission as a Jesuit. Look up what the Jesuits believe in. A Jesuit and Catholic institution. This is unacceptable, he said.
It is.
I don't know where to begin here, John Heilman. This is, again, as David French said, a guy who actually knows constitutional law, a constitutional lawyer, and has spent his life, his adult life, actually fighting for the rights of religious institutions. It is shocking that the interim U.S. attorney would send a letter to Georgetown saying, we are going to punish you unless you teach what we tell you to teach. Seriously, this is also, of course, the same interim U.S. attorney that decided he was going to open an investigation against the top Democrat in the United States Senate, Chuck Schumer. The list goes on and on and on. But again, anybody who knows anything about Jesuit education will tell you that the last thing Jesuits deal with are being told, you must teach in this narrowly confined area. It's really It's shocking for that reason. It's shocking because they're doing it to a private Christian school, and it is shocking that they're doing it because of the First Amendment.
So much in this story, Joe. Speaking as someone who was educated by Jesuits, it's incredible. Let's just focus on two pieces of this. One is the Ed Martin piece, right? Which is not only has he opened an investigation of Chuck Schumer, you know, he posted on social media that one statement related to, I believe, the AP case, the administration's anger about the AP and the press pool. And he said this thing where he said, you know, as he referred to his office as Donald Trump's lawyers, which, of course, so profoundly misunderstands the nature of what we've thought of as the jobs of U.S. attorneys and the jobs of the Justice Department. They are not Donald Trump's lawyers. They're not the president's lawyers. He has lawyers. They are the lawyers for the United States of America. So, and this is a guy, of course, as you know, the interim U.S. attorney for the Washington, D.C., who was a big defender of the January 6th rioters, someone who was a big part of the Stop the Steal movement. So there are a lot of questions to ask. He's reflective of a problem that is a profound problem going on in the administration right now related to how the Justice Department is used to pursue political ends. And that is certainly what's going on here with Georgetown. But there's a whole other piece of this that gets beyond Jesuits and goes to the way in which the administration is going after universities to pursue not just Jesuit ones and on other topics. You know, we saw over the weekend that there's 10, I believe, the administration's watch list because they haven't done enough about anti-Semitism. So $400 million of federal grants and funding to Columbia University. Now, we can have different points of view. Anybody can argue about anti-Semitism on campus, about what has or hasn't happened at Columbia University. But I do not think that anyone who is a constitutionalist, either in the legal sense or in the philosophical sense, thinks that what we want is an administration going around from school to school and pulling their funding if those schools haven't done, quote, enough to pursue what the administration thinks is the right course of action related to speech on campus. There are real problems in that area, but the heavy hand of the federal government is clearly not the way to solve them.
Now, here's what you probably haven't heard through the main headlines. Badar Khan Suri's arrest wasn't driven by evidence of criminal activity. Instead, he was detained outside his home in Arlington, Virginia, by masked Department of Homeland Security agents. His student visa was suddenly revoked, and the detaining officer cited allegations of ties to Hamas, and accusations of anti-Semitism spread through social media. But, and this is critical, the government has yet to offer any substantial evidence to back these claims. So why is this important? Suri's story doesn't exist in isolation. It's part of a larger pattern we're seeing, where academics and students connected to pro-Palestinian activism are being systematically targeted. Suri's case has echoes of another disturbing instance involving Mahmoud Khalil, a Columbia University graduate student who faced deportation after participating in protests related to Israeli policies. Or consider Ranjani Srinivasan, a PhD student who fled to Canada under similar pressure. Both were accused of breaching some vague notion of American foreign policy interests, again without clear proof. And let's not overlook Suri's personal life, because that seems to be central in why he's being targeted. He's married to Mafezi Saleh, an American citizen of Palestinian descent. Saleh's family has been publicly associated with Palestinian advocacy, and right-wing groups, some operating anonymously online, have recently ramped up harassment campaigns against her. Could it be that Suri's detention is less about his actions and more about punishment by association? I mean, these are questions that honestly we can't afford to ignore. Let's dig into the law that was used to detain Dr. Suri, the provision allowing deportation of non-citizens deemed a threat to American foreign policy. Now, this is not a common tool in the government's arsenal. It's a relatively obscure section of immigration law, but we've seen it applied recently, almost exclusively, against individuals associated with pro-Palestinian activism. And the critical phrase here is foreign policy interests. It's so vaguely defined that anyone really could fall under its umbrella if the government simply decides they disagree with their views. It's, well, incredibly dangerous. And what about Georgetown University's response? They've issued statements emphasizing their support for free inquiry and academic debate, but they've also admitted that they're in the dark about why Dr. Suri was detained. They say they've seen no evidence that he engaged in illegal activity. So, this raises serious questions about the responsibilities of academic institutions. Shouldn't universities like Georgetown be doing more, not just in this case, but to ensure their faculty, students, and researchers feel protected when tackling controversial subjects? I mean, what kind of precedent does this set if scholars feel that pursuing certain topics could put them at risk? We also need to consider the chilling effect this has on academic discourse. Imagine you're a researcher studying topics like Middle East politics or social justice movements. Wouldn't you hesitate knowing that your work could be interpreted or misinterpreted as a threat to someone's idea of foreign policy? And you know, this isn't just hypothetical. We're already seeing scholars and students self-censoring, pulling back from subjects they feel can make them a target. It's not just silencing individuals like Dr. Suri. It's eroding the very foundation of academic freedom in the U.S. Now think about the broader implications for scholars, especially international scholars in the U.S. These are people who've committed their lives to the kind of rigorous research that opens minds and fosters greater understanding. When they become vulnerable to arbitrary detention, we risk losing their invaluable contributions, and we risk diminishing the global standing of American universities. Academic freedom is not and cannot be a luxury. It's essential to a functioning democracy. When we talk about advocacy groups and media narratives painting someone like Dr. Badar Khan Suri as a threat, it's not just an issue of perception. It's about how those perceptions feed directly into policy decisions that can upend lives. Now, advocacy groups like the ones targeting Suri often operate with what seems like a singular goal: to amplify simplistic narratives, often ones that strip away the nuance of complex geopolitical conflicts like the one over Israel and Palestine. And let's not forget the role of technology here. Online campaigns, with their coordinated harassment and disinformation, are succeeding in reframing public narratives, turning academics into scapegoats for national security concerns. Am I saying there aren't real threats? No. But we're allowing sound bites and hashtags to dictate the course of policymaking without regard for evidence or the damage it causes, not only to those targeted, but to the critical values of free speech and inquiry. I've seen this pattern before. Years ago, I got involved in an advocacy campaign for migrant healthcare rights, an issue I deeply care about as a physician. The opposition flooded the media with stories of so-called abuses, painting migrants as drains on the system. The narrative was loud, relentless, and, well, dishonest. But the reality was far grayer. These individuals, just like Dr. Suri, were reduced to caricatures, villains in a script they didn't write. And you know what? It took everything in us to fight back with facts, context, and human stories. This is why we must reject the shortcuts, the easy answers, the black and white labels for who's good and who's bad. Justice isn't simple, and democracy demands more of us. When advocacy distorts public perception and those perceptions start driving policy, it's often justice, academic freedom, and human dignity that pay the price. And in that fight for justice, every voice, no matter how small, matters. So as we close, I want to leave you with this. If we value academic dialogue, if we truly believe in the principles of freedom, freedom to learn, to question, and to challenge power, we can't afford to stay silent when those freedoms come under fire. That wraps up today's episode of The Real 411. I want to personally thank each and every one of you for tuning in and for your continued support. It means more than you know. If you found value in today's discussion, please drop a comment, follow us on all social media platforms, and let us know what topics you'd like to see us cover next. Be sure to sign up for our email newsletter so you never miss an update or exclusive insight. And if you believe in independent media, media that digs deeper and dares to tell the truth, please consider following The Real 411 on Substack and Fanbase. We offer both free and paid subscriptions, and your support helps us continue producing content that informs, empowers, and sparks real conversation. Thanks again for being part of this journey, because remember, the story is never just the headline. Until next time, stay informed, stay bold, and stay real.